Greetings, my late night listeners, and welcome back to Night Sessions. It looks like we made it to the end of 2020, and not a moment too soon. But just when you thought things couldn't get any stranger, we have another mystery on our hands to kick off the year 2021. Tonight, we'll be diving into the mystery of the Beast of Bray Road. And spoiler alert, it just might turn out to be a werewolf. To give ourselves a brief history on the creature, the story goes that a werewolf is a human with the ability to shapeshift into a wolf, either purposely or after being placed under a curse or affliction, with the transformation occurring on the night of a full moon. You might think this cryptic creature is a creation of the superstitions surrounding magic and witchcraft during the medieval era, but the theory of werewolves is a much older one than that. The earliest mention of man-to-wolf transformations can be traced back to around 2100 BC. The ancient Egyptians revered a creature called Anubis, god of the dead. He was presented in statues and paintings as having the figure of a man with the head of a jackal or wild dog. In ancient Greece, there was a belief that anyone who tasted human flesh would inevitably be transformed into a wolf. And according to an old Irish legend, St. Patrick punished people by transforming them into wolves. They would remain a wolf for 7 years, then they would turn back into their human form until another 7 years was completed, then back to wolf form. And so the cycle continued. Travelers who came to Ireland over the years reported seeing entire families of werewolves. Some are said to have witnessed the transformation firsthand. In fact, up until the end of the 18th century, Ireland was known as Wolfland. In 1812, the Grimm brothers published the story Little Red Riding Hood, a retelling of the European folktale about a young girl and a big, bad wolf. Some Native American tribes have long called these shape-shifting creatures skinwalkers. A skinwalker has the ability to take the form of multiple creatures, such as an owl, crow, and a coyote, though most common form is a wolf. By the 1930s, these wolf-like creatures had made an appearance in modern America. In the early 90s, there was a cluster of sightings near Elkhorn, Wisconsin. The beast was seen several times on Bray Road and is described by witnesses in differing ways. Some describe it as a bear-like creature, some as a hairy biped resembling Bigfoot, and others as an unusually large, intelligent, werewolf-like creature, able to walk on its hind legs. All agree that it stood about 7 feet tall, weighing 400 to 700 pounds. It's also said that its fur is a brown-gray color, resembling a dog or bear. It's also noted that unusually large animal tracks resembling coyote tracks have also been discovered in the area of Bray Road, leading many researchers to conclude the creature is an unusually large coyote or wolf-coyote hybrid. Animal mutilations have also been reported in the area around Bray Road, with animal remains, including deer and livestock, being partially eaten with specific organs removed from the animal carcasses. With plenty of media coverage, these witness accounts were deeply scrutinized. Skeptics theorized that the beast was a new breed of wild dog. Locals called it a werewolf, and some cryptozoologists suggest it's yet another series of Bigfoot sightings. Keeping those theories in mind, I'll read our first encounter with the Beast of Bray Road, and leave it up to you to draw your own conclusions. In an article from the Milwaukee Magazine titled The Legend of the Beast of Bray Road by Archer Parquet, Mark Shackleman arrived at St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children a little before midnight. He carried his flashlight on his belt. As the night watchman for the school, he walked these grounds every night. The school was located inside a former Franciscan convent outside Jefferson, and the grounds covered several old buildings, an orchard, and wide open fields where several old Native American burial mounds have been preserved. The year was 1936. Shackleman was in his 30s, a husband and father working the uneventful job for a paycheck to support his family. In rural Jefferson, there wasn't much to worry about, save the possibility of a burglar or some teenagers playing a prank. That night, Shackleman was crossing the fields when he saw a shadow. He squinted to see what it was. A hunched form was on all fours, digging into one of the mounds. From the canine way it dug, it could have been a dog or maybe a wolf. But even from far away, Shackleman could see that the thing was far too big for that. Suddenly, it looked at him, and then it stood up. The sleek, hairy body unfurled to over 6 feet tall. It had a shaggy canine face, but beneath the thick fur, the muscular body of a man. A low growl echoed across the field. He smelled rotting meat. His heart beating fast, trying to control his breath, Shackleman stepped back. With sudden violence, the thing turned and ran off into the trees and was gone. The next night, Shackleman returned to St. Coletta for his usual rounds. As he walked the fields, he saw the shadow again, digging into the same mound as the night before. This time, he gripped his flashlight tight, ready to run or swing if need be. Again, it stood up, but this time it opened its mouth. Shackleman saw fangs hanging down from its teeth, and its lips pulled back in a snarl. It growled at him, its speech half human and half beast. He didn't move, and again the creature turned and left. He never saw it again, but the horrendous growl, the way it seemed to speak to him, stuck in his mind for years afterward. One woman reported the beast attempting to break into her home and later injuring one of her horses, leaving a gash across its back. She claimed the footprints it left behind were over 12 inches long. In 1999, an 18-year-old girl was driving down Bray Road near Delavan when she says her right tire hit something, lifting it up off the ground. She stopped and got out to see what she had run over, but there was nothing there. She looked to the side of the road and saw a massive wolfish form standing on 2 legs. She rushed back into the car, and as she peeled away, the beast leapt onto her trunk, but slid off in the slick rain, and she sped home. When she came forward with her story, many of the other sightings were reported as well, prompting both further investigation and fresh skepticism. These sightings prompted The Week, a Walworth County weekly paper, to send Linda Godfrey to investigate and compile stories. While initially skeptical, Godfrey says she came to believe the sincerity of the witnesses who spoke to her. As we let those encounters sink in, how about we take a break and enjoy this song?
보름달 아래서 허벅진 꼬집고 참아야 하는 거야 너 옆에 누워있는 살짝 비춰지는 널 어떻게 해야 돼 Wolf Under the blooming moon 너의 손 붙잡고 We can take it slow if you want No 옆에 누워있는 활짝 웃는 너를 난 어떻게 해야 돼 Wolf Hey, hey, Wolf
Welcome back. Our next encounter comes from a gentleman who shared his story after realizing 20 years later that the thing he saw 40 miles outside of Elkhorn had been given a name. At the time, he was just 12 years old, but recalls his experience in great detail. His story begins. I lived in the town of Franklin, Wisconsin. This was about 97 or 98. We had just moved into a brand new subdivision and were currently the only house that was built. The rest of the area for a long distance was empty lots on what used to be the adjoining farm's old land. Our backyard had a running creek. On the other side of the creek was some brush and a single-lane road with an old wooden streetlight that gave off an orange hue about 30 or so yards away. It was a warm summer night, and I was having a sleepover with one of my friends. We had all the lights off and were playing hide-and-seek in the dark. I went back into our sunroom and saw something crouched over, illuminated through the bush and the orange streetlight. I'm not sure how to describe its body posture. You know how when you're about to throw up and you hunch over on your knees and palms? It was similar to that. Its breaths were so deep and heavy that you could see its chest heaving from that distance. We had a 140-pound Akita who stood 6 feet on his hind legs. I could easily tell that whatever this was dwarfed my Akita. I also know that it wasn't any type of dog or wolf. Its hind legs were thick and muscular like a man's, but its body tapered at the abdomen and head like a wolf or canine. I called out to my friend who came over and just said, "What is that?" to me, trying not to make much noise. We sat there as it was hunched for a good 30 minutes. My dad, who was a Vietnam vet, came out to see what we were doing up so late. We asked what it was and he just said, "I don't know." He then went outside and we stayed in, scared for my dad. He had one of those old mega lights that had the power of 1,000 candles, and took it with him. He stood in the driveway and shined it onto whatever we were watching. It looked back at us, and I honestly don't remember its eye color. What I do remember is that when it took off into the brush, it took off upright, like a sprinter, from the on all fours stance. My dad heard it splash through the creek and hightailed it inside. It was one of those moments you don't really talk about because people will think you're crazy. When I heard about it so many years later, I immediately knew I had seen it too. And that concludes our final encounter with the Beast of Bray Road. It's a lot to think about, isn't it? Werewolves have quite an extensive history, but somehow still manage to remain a mystery. It's also intriguing that so many different cultures have similar descriptions of such a creature. The theory of shapeshifting is a deep one that we may have to revisit again sometime. But until then, remember, keep your eyes open. The world is a mysterious place, my friend. Until next time, I'm signing off.